So today's video is about metric prefixes and converting between them. There's a couple of ways to do that. There's a couple of ways to do that, but one of the easier ways is to remember the units themselves. So here is a sentence and an easy way to remember before we get to the remembering the prefixes. What are metric prefixes? I told you I thought you knew a little bit about this, but what do you know about it? So metric prefixes go in front of a unit of measure. Okay? So if they go in front of a unit, what kinds of units might we use? Well, we might use meters. We might use grams. We might use liters. So all of these kind of measurements in the metric system, we're going to put these prefixes in front of. Right? So let's look at the prefixes that we might have. Okay? How many of you have heard kilo before? Or just, kilo is 1,000 times. So 1 kilogram, 1 kilo whatever, equals 1,000 units. Right? I'm going to try to make that a little smaller. What about hecto? Have you ever heard of hecto? Hecto might be one that we didn't learn in middle school, but we might have a hectometer. We might have a hectogram. We might have a hectoliter. 1 hectoliter equals, I'm going to try to squish this together a little, 100 units. So notice we go 1,000, 100. What do you think the next one's going to be? One deca whatever is 10 units. So deca is the prefix. I'll do that a little differently. And then after deca is the unit. So 1 unit equals 1 unit. We're not multiplying it at all at the unit. Okay. So all of these are bigger than the unit. There are things that are smaller than the unit as well. So we'll go ahead and label them. Okay. We have deci units. So at the deci unit, we're going to flip it. 10 deci units equals 1 unit. So it might be 1 meter. 10 decimeters equals 1 meter. 10 decigrams equals 1 gram. Alright? So then, you guys know this one though, right? Centi? How many centimeters are in a meter? I heard somebody whisper. 100 centimeters equals 1 meter. 100 centigrams equals 1 gram. 100 centiliters equals 1 liter. And then milli. What is milli? How many milliliters are in a liter? Heard somebody whispering over there. 1,000 milliliters are in 1 liter. 1,000 millimeters are in 1 meter. Okay. So if I pull out a ruler real quick, okay, pull out a ruler. These are centimeters. So here's 1 centimeter. All right. Hold on. Hey, Dayton. All right. So if this is 1 centimeter, okay, it takes 100 of these to make a meter. The little tiny ones in between, that's 1 millimeter. So there's 10 millimeters in 1 centimeter. Okay. So the little ones are millimeters. 1 of these is a centimeter. 10 of these, right here, that's a decimeter. Alright, so kind of putting it into perspective as something that you know, something that you have seen before. And then a meter would be 100 centimeters. So this is not big enough to be a meter. This is like a third of a meter, almost. Alright, so kind of getting that into perspective, thinking about it. You are going to be responsible to memorize kilo, hecto, deca, and deci, centi, milli. I'm not saying memorize it to like make things hard on you. I'm saying you have to memorize it because you're going to use these so much that it's just going to benefit you to memorize it. So one way to memorize it, and this is a pretty common way, is to create a sentence that helps you keep it all in the right order. So the sentence that I gave you on the lesson today was King Henry, and the sentence in the lesson says, died unusually drinking chocolate. You can't see that. Chocolate milk. So if you can remember that order, that's just a like mnemonic device to help you remember. Kilo, hecto, deca, unit, deci, centi, milli. You're going to need that as we move along. Okay? So there's that way that we talked about from the lesson. And another way that you can think about it is just writing them in a straight line. I don't care which way that you use, but it is up to you. So it would be kilo, hecto, deca, unit, deci, centi, milli. So this is 1 unit. This is 10 units. 100 units. 1,000 units. We could go the other way too. Okay. So let's go ahead and do some example problems. and we'll kind of go through the steps of how to solve them. Okay, so you're going to want to go back to the lesson and find the practice, which, you're going to go find the practice, which is right here in step 4. It says here's the PDF for today's practice. You should complete. All right, so we're going to open that. Where did it go? There it is. And then we'll do some practice problems together. Okay, so let's look at these first ones. All right, now this right here sounds really easy. If you know, okay, I want to go from kilo to the unit, well, I'm just going to divide, or I'm going to multiply, or however that you're going to look at that. But let's go ahead and do the first problems together, and we'll go through the process and write down the steps. So 1A says 400 dm equals some number of hm. Okay, well, wait a second. We have dm. Is that deca or deci? Well, let's make sure we know those. K, H, deca is dA. Then the unit doesn't have any prefix. Deci is just little d, little c, and m. So these are decimeters. Okay. And we're going to go to hectometers. So here's the process, right? We can see that these go by tens. So there's taking away a 0 every time down to 1, and then adding a 0 after the decimal every time after 1. So here's the process. We're going to go deci to hecto. So we're going to say, okay, that's 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 steps. So I am moving up with my steps. That means that my decimal is going to go to the left. Okay. So I could say, all right, 400, I need to go 1, 2, 3 steps. 1, 2, 3, 0.4 is my hectometer. So that's what I would put here. And the opposite is true. If I am moving down, I'm going to go to the right. All right, so let's do another example. Now let's write our steps really quick so we make sure that we get the steps right. First step. Okay. Count how many places or steps your prefixes are apart. So in this case, we had 3. 1, 2, 3. Then, number 2, decide if you're going up or down. If you go up, move your decimal left the number of spaces. If you go right, or if you go down, Move your decimals. Right. The number of spaces. Alright, so let's do another example. Let's do B. Where did we go? Right there. 1B. B says 10 kilometers equals some number of hectometers. Alright, so if I go back to what I had, I'm starting with kilometers and I'm going to hectometers. So I look at my steps. I'm going to say from kilometers to hectometers is 1 step. And I went down, so I'm going to move my decimal to the right. So I have my number, 10. My decimal would be right here. I'm going to move it to the right, 1 space. So now I have 100 is the number I actually need. 100 hectometers. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense, and a thumbs down if it's totally crazy. We got 1 thumb up and everybody else is still dutifully writing. Okay. Alright, let's do some more practice. I'm going to have to switch my page. Okay. But in switching the page, we're going to see an important thing that we need to do. Okay, I have a blank new page here. And what I'm going to encourage you to do as you do these problems is to just always write your prefixes down. So you're going to go kilometers, hectometers, decameters, then the unit, because that's a step. And then we had decimeters, centimeters, millimeters. That way you can count your steps, and it's a good strategy. Okay, so let's go and do some more problems. So the next one, 2A. I don't know why this worksheet's listed like that, but it is. 480 meters equals some number of hectometers. Alright, so I'm going to go from the unit, which is the meters. So we might have meters, liters, or grams. But I'm going to go from the unit to hectometer, which is H. So I'm going to say 2 steps. 2 steps, I went up. So if I go up, which direction am I going to go? Well, look back at what we said. Look back at those notes. If I go up, I'm going to move my decimal to the left. So up is left. I had my 480 is the number I started with. So my decimal point would be right here. I'm going to go 2 steps to the left, and I'm going to say 4.80 hectometers. Okay. Alright, so 8.6 centimeters, and we're going to go from centimeters to millimeters. So if I go centimeters, right here, and I'm going to go to millimeters, how many steps is that? It's 1 step. Is it up or down? It's down. So I'm going to move to the right. So we could put a note of that. Down is to the right. So if I had 8.6, there's my decimal. I need to move it to the right. 1 step. So I have 86 millimeters. Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense and you're good. Okay. Alright. Now, another question. Give me a thumbs up if you want more examples, and a thumbs down if you want to go ahead and work on your own. Okay, see, thumbs up for more examples. Alright, I have lots of thumbs up, so I'm going to go ahead and keep doing examples. If you want to go on your own pace, that's totally fine. But remember, you need to work in CK12 a little bit too. Okay, so I'll keep going with examples. So 3A. 3A says 3.4 centimeters equals some number of millimeters. So when I look at the same thing as we just did, centimeters to millimeters, I moved down 1. So I know if I go down, I'm going to the right. My decimal point's right there. I'm going to move it over 1 to the right. I'm going to have 34 millimeters. And 3B, 8.4 decameters equals some number of decimeters. Now this is really important to keep these two straight because deca is the big one, deci is the little one. So if I'm going from decameters to decimeters, then I'm going to move 2 steps down. If I go down, I'm going to the right. So here's my number. I'm going to say 2 steps. So I'm going to have 840 decimeters for 3B. Alright. I'll go ahead and do these two, and then I'm going to let you work on your own and get moving for those. So 4A says 89 decimeters equals some number of meters. So if I look at my units that I had here, decimeters to meters is 1 step going up. So I'm going to go to the left. So we had 1 step, and it's going up. So if I have my number as 89, my decimal point would be right here. I'm going to move it to the left, and I'm going to have 8.9 meters. Okay, last example. So 4B says 2,440 decameters. So that's the big one. And equals some number of kilometers. Now some of you might be tempted to say, well, it's thousands, so it's 2.4. Hold on. We have decameters. So instead of 3 steps, we're going to take from deca 2 steps. 2 steps, and we're going up. So 2 steps up would take us to the left. So if our number is, and you cannot see what I'm writing, 2,440, our decimal point's at the end. We're going to say 2 steps to the left, 24.40. So you be really mindful that you need to count your steps, know which direction you're going to go, and then thoughtfully move that decimal point over.